Underage littles. Yeah. So I think it's about time that I make a video dedicated purely to underage littles, and they're kind of in our community and we need to do something about it. Yes, underage littles exist. They are definitely around. I myself was 10 years old when I found out about ABDL on the Good Nights web board. I found it through that and kind of knew from that point on that this was what I was into. So yeah, while they do exist, isn't a reason to tell them that they're not okay or that they're not allowed to be themselves, because I mean they're going to be themselves regardless and they should feel okay with being who they are. But as an adult, you do need to keep them safe. And a lot of adults think that this involves education. And I'm really not sure that we should be educating children on things like this. That is something that is just really, you're entering a gray territory. When you're talking to a child, you are talking to someone that does not have the ability to consent. You're talking to a minor that doesn't have any constitutional rights. They're still owned by their parents, technically. By involving yourself in something that their parents should be doing is dangerous. You could get in legal trouble if their parents found out, and multiple other issues that come along with it. Education can be dangerous because you might not know the right information to give that child. You might think that you know the right info, but you might really not. And so what you're telling that kid might really come from a good place in your heart, but it might not be what that child should hear. Giving info to kids also can help them realize that, hey, I'm okay doing this, and that this is just fine. So I'm gonna ask other people for information now because I have a different question that someone else might be able to answer. And when they go and they ask that question to someone else, you don't know that the person that they're asking is going to be necessarily safe. There are groomers in this community that will use children, that will make them into who they want them to be, and sexually, even if this has nothing to do with sex for that child. So you really need to be careful on even giving the information, because you're making a setup where you're telling the kids that this is okay, this is safe to do, it's safe to come and get information from adults. When in actuality, it's not safe. It's not safe for them ever to get information from anyone in this, because even the information that we get as adults isn't always the correct information, and we know that. But as adults, we're able to make that decision on our own, and when you're doing it for a child, you're introducing things to them that really they don't need to be introduced to anyway. So about a month ago, I made a post on my Instagram story about this, about an issue that happened to me, and I'm gonna post it here. I was pretty emotional in the video, but I'll let you guys see it anyway. I'm just gonna go ahead and post this. I've never shown myself on here crying, but you know, I'm just gonna fucking say it because maybe you guys will get it through your head, those of you that are underage or supporting that shit, if I tell this shit. First of all, I wasn't even a minor when it happened, so this is just showing that it can happen to anyone. I had just turned 18, and I decided to find a daddy online, and apparently he had probably other littles, I'm sure he did, and he took me to a hotel a little bit before I went there about what we were gonna do, and none of it, this never came up. He ended up putting the suppository in me without asking, taking me to the store and trying to make me go in the middle of the store, which I didn't, but never, like, got any pre-negotiation on any of this shit. He never talked about safe words. I didn't know any of this. I had no idea. I just jumped in and thought I could do it because I was an adult, getting me to do exactly what he wanted. And he knew how to use it. He knew how to work me, how to talk to me in a certain voice to get me to do what he wanted me to do that I didn't want to do. I went outside without pants on, which I would never do, ever. And you know, now I'm fucking angry. Like, years later, I can look back and be like, this guy caused me to have kinks. He, like, gave me my kinks, which is really fucking disturbing to me. And he was an abuser. Like, my dumbass at 18 decides I'm gonna go see him again. Next time he comes here, he came down and I didn't have anyone. I had no one, so I settled on this guy. And the second time was worse. A lot worse. We're on a trigger warning here. Yeah, he decided that when he was changing me, he was gonna finger me. And although he was a virgin, he knew biology, he said. And so I didn't know how to say no because I was already deep in little headspace. I faked an orgasm because I wanted to stop, and I had no idea how to say no. And I cannot tell you guys how scary it is to not know how to say no. And, like, it sounds so easy. You just say no, right? And it wasn't. It wasn't easy at all. I was so afraid of disappointing my dad. And the fucked up thing is that at the time,
I was only slightly upset. I had no idea the extent of what had happened. I didn't understand why that was wrong or why that wasn't okay. Part of me thinks that because I do have his contact info now, that I should contact him, because like I just got that info and it hasn't come up in years, and it's all just like brought to the surface, and I'm like, oh, there's this thing again. I had dealt with it by making him into this fucked up character and just making a joke out of it, but he's a real person. He's still fucking out there, and like, I don't know, I feel like, what would I even say? The moral of this is that even at 18, you're not safe. So to think that you're gonna be safe at 13, 14, 15, like, what? Even like 16, 17, no, you're not safe. You're never safe. To go to a hotel, to be a little, to not do anything sexual, to just be a little, smoke a bowl maybe, and just have some fun, and I got screwed. So, just warning. I take some deep breaths, calm myself down, and I know I'll be okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. As someone just pointed out to me at my DMs, it's the feeling of regret that I want you guys to understand, that just because it's okay when you're 18 or even when you're younger doesn't mean that it's gonna feel okay when you're older and know what you're doing.
So even though I was 18 when all of that happened, it wasn't okay to me afterwards. Once I became an adult and I started to look into the situation and really understanding what happened to me, I really started to understand that this is not how it should have been. It wasn't how it should have played out. And I was 18. I can't imagine what it would be like if you were underage doing these kinds of things. Even online, I didn't go into it there, but I was with multiple people talking online and was abused, was manipulated, was made to do things on cam that I didn't feel comfortable with. And this did not happen once or just twice, and I said it would never happen to me at all. And I honestly didn't really have an issue with it until I was older and started to look at those people that were doing those things to me and thinking that maybe they didn't have my best interest in mind, that maybe they were just bad adults and that they really wanted to make me into what they wanted me to be. It's just really not safe to be involved when you're underage. You're contacting adults or even minors, or what you think are minors that might be adults, of all types. You don't know where these people are coming from. They're online. You cannot trust people on the internet. As much as everyone wants to pretend to be your friend, you still cannot trust people online, because even your best friend could easily hurt you. They're not in front of your face, and the people you're talking to might not be who you actually think you're talking to. You could be talking to an old man in Russia who thinks that you're hot in your diaper photos and think that it's a 16-year-old girl like you. It's really dangerous. And really, these type of relationships or interactions when you're younger aren't really fulfilling. As someone that did do it when I was younger and really had to get out of the community quick as a child, because I realized really fast that this was bad, it wasn't fulfilling. Even when they're both underage in a relationship, the caregivers that they're having really might not be mentally stable. They're still children themselves. And honestly, I'm not saying that children are mentally unstable or anything like that. But when you are younger, your choices that you make are not the brightest. And that's just everyone. I can't say that the choices I made at even 19 or 20 were the brightest choices I've made in my life. Really, you're in an emotional state of mind at that point in time. You're putting your trust in a caregiver who might not have your best interest in mind. The relationships that you have as a minor aren't going to be as fulfilling because you're not experienced. And the way that you can gain experience as a minor is researching things, not through joining the community. You don't want to just jump into this. You're going to need to do lots and lots and lots of research. When you're getting involved in a community like this, you really need to research what you're doing. Research will let you learn who you are. You really need to know who you are as a person before you can get involved in an adult community. And knowing who you are as a person involves knowing what you're into, knowing what you're not into, and really just looking those kinds of things up and learning as much as you possibly can about the thing that you're into. There's a lot of scary things that can happen when you're making YouTube videos underage, and I know a lot of you do that, and it's really dangerous. There's fair use, so any of the videos that you make on YouTube can actually be shared on TV shows, on other videos. I've had cringe videos made of me. Even the pictures that you're posting online on social media sites are fair use. Unless you're on a site like FetLife, which you can't join under 18, you're going to be posting your pictures or videos on sites that anyone can see them, anyone can use them. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was in high school, this stuff really would have damaged me. It would have really been hard to deal with everyone knowing that I was into something a little bit different, and I don't know how I would have been able to handle that. Along with all the bullying that goes on in high schools today and all the issues that you're going to have to experience as a teen, you don't need the extra drama of being an ABDL or being an age regressor in this. Like, you just don't. It's going to be dangerous. You're going to have people throwing your photos up on some diaper girl website that you didn't even consent to. It happens all the time. I cannot tell you how many times I've tried to file a DMCA takedown, and they don't care. They do not care. They will steal your content, it will be everywhere, and you just kind of have to deal with that because that's part of fair use. There's no way to get it taken down, and it sucks. But you really need to be careful because when you're underage, you're putting that stuff out there and you don't know what you want to do with your life. You don't know that this is going to be part of you forever, or if it's just a phase that you're going through. You're not sure what you even want to do for a living. This could actually ruin what you decide to do for a living. I know that I personally would love to work with children, but after putting out all these YouTube videos, probably will never happen. There have been people in the past, like Ella, who went on Secret Lives of Women many years ago, who was fired from her job as a preschool teacher because she went on a program where she talked about being an ABDL. And she didn't say it was sexual for her. In fact, she said it was non-sexual for her, and that it was just something that they like to do. And she was still fired because people have a negative connotation around ABDL and around any kind of age play, age regressive, whatever you want to call it. So if you want to work around kids, you want a government job, you want to be a teacher one day, you want any kind of position of employment you want to be taken seriously, it's going to be very difficult if you have this content out there. I know of someone who was outed to their job by another person where they were faxed in pictures of her in a diaper to a law firm that she was interning at, and this got her let go from her internship. It kind of ruined her life, and it was all over just having some diaper photos online and that law office not really wanting someone like that working for them because that's really not seen as okay. And we can work on changing that, but it might not ever change. And really, a professional job does not want someone working for them that has content out online of doing something that is obscene in a way. And I don't want to use the word obscene saying that we're weird or that we're crazy or fucked up, but really, we fall under what is considered obscene. A common conversation I have with minors when trying to block them from my Instagram page or tell them why they shouldn't be viewing my content, because I do try to tell them that, hey, you shouldn't be posting anything online, this doesn't need to happen, you really need to take a step back, and that's the education that I give. I don't stand for educating people and having a full-on conversation with them about diapers or anything like that, but if you are going to educate, it needs to come from the point of you should not be here because you can get hurt. And that is what I tell them. And when I do tell them that, they say, well, it's not a kink, it's not sexual for me. And for a lot of people into infantilism, it's not sexual for them either. Or I do it as a mental health coping mechanism. I cannot tell you how many kids I hear telling me that they do this off a mental health coping mechanism. And as someone like myself who struggles with borderline personality disorder, and that is a DBT skill actually, is age regression. And age regression in the form of therapy is meant to be done with a therapist. First of all, if you're doing age regression and saying it's therapy, you should have a therapist doing age regression with you, not a caregiver, not somebody online, not just looking through Tumblr and calling it age regression therapy. Age regression therapy is something that is done with a therapist. Age regression is a coping mechanism. As a coping mechanism, something like blowing bubbles, coloring in your coloring book could be good. Or just spending some time to relax and kind of think like a child. That is age regression as a coping mechanism. Age regression as a coping mechanism should not take over your life. So as a coping mechanism, I would argue and say that more of these kids that are saying it's just a coping mechanism for me are going to get a little bit older and realize that it's more of a lifestyle thing for them. A coping mechanism is something like, let's say I like to journal for coping. I journal, I do a bullet journal, I like to write a little bit, but I don't make a whole Instagram or Tumblr page dedicated to journaling, or else you would probably consider me a writer. So why would I consider someone that has a whole profile on one coping mechanism, and this coping mechanism is kind of taking over their life as an age regressor through therapy instead of as just an age regressor? It doesn't really matter why you're here. A lot of us are here because it helps us cope with real life. It helps us deal with those stresses. You really shouldn't be just using this as a mental health coping mechanism, and you should have other coping mechanisms too. And if you are doing this just for a coping mechanism, you really should also be seeing a therapist, because you will get more help from a therapist that is able to direct you through how this is going to go than some mommy or daddy or whatever online that's going to help you. It's not really going to be help necessarily, because it's really easy to get manipulated when you're having issues. Very, very easy. You want to please people. You want to make everyone else happy except for yourself, and that gets you into some really dangerous situations. So I would really look into why you're doing this as a mental health coping mechanism, and maybe look into fixing that issue first. And I know with borderline, it can be difficult, and you can have moments where you just need something to take you away from your life other than killing yourself or hurting yourself. So I completely understand, but it should not take over your life and be considered a coping mechanism. That is a lifestyle, and a lot of people with borderline have this lifestyle, and that's okay. You just also need to be going to therapy and working with someone, and not just saying that because it's therapy, it's okay for me to be here, because this is still an adult community. If you want to do it as a coping mechanism, you probably wouldn't be involving diapers, you wouldn't be going to this extent to do it, because a coping mechanism for age regression really doesn't look like this. So my overall take on underage minors is, while they might view content like this, and I really don't feel comfortable with that either, but I know they're going to do it. And I don't think that they should be participating though. Participating is dangerous for them and really not okay. It's like a vanilla child looking at porn. They can look at porn, but no one's encouraging them to make porn. And they shouldn't be making porn even on their own. It's the same thing with kink or ABDL or age regression. You don't do this underage. You might view it underage, but you don't go and make a profile about it. You keep quiet, you stay in the distance, because it's not safe for you here. Life is a long process, and you don't need to rush it. You will have so many years for you to do this stuff, to get involved, to have actual fun with adults. Just go out and live your life as a child. Be the actual child that you want to be when you're an adult, because there you will get to a time where you'll look back and say, wow, I was in such an adult involvement that I missed out on things that other kids my age were looking at or doing in their free time, because I was so involved being an adult at an underage. There's going to be a part 2 to this video, and it's going to be discussing things I've seen on Tumblr, specifically CGLRE. So yeah, go check that out. Alright, bye guys!